Hello guys, so Peter Sweden here.
Bigot, Islamophobe, anti-Semitic, racist, Nazi, fascist, far-right extremist.
This cannot go on. It cannot go on!
I'm basically unemployable now.
I've got huge legs.
Don't let feminism rule a country because...
Meatballs! And Sweden is a communist country.
Oi, those Muslims!
It makes me so upset. The left has stooped to new lows.
One guy there tried to stick his finger up my bottom.
What's going on anymore? Am I living in a alternative reality?
Yes, Peter. Yes, you fucking are. Hello there, everybody, and welcome to episode 52 of The Descent of Man-osphere, the series where I take you through the ways in which the manosphere and its utterly disgusting, reprehensible douchebag inhabitants are trying to reverse human evolution and drag us all back into the fucking sea. And today we are dealing with a living meme. Yes, this man is arguably the most wrong human being in the history of the fucking world. Yes, I am, of course, talking about Peter Sweden! Now, Peter Sweden isn't his real name, it's very much his online pseudonym, presumably chosen because he's from Sweden, because, you know, he's a real original thinker, this guy. Now, I say he's from Sweden, but actually he was born in Norway and grew up and was homeschooled in Sweden. Yes, and the homeschooling aspect of that very much shines through very strongly in his personality. Seriously, parents, don't homeschool your children. All you're doing there is ensuring that they're going to be emotionally and socially stunted fucking idiots, okay? So just don't, please. Don't. And in his early adulthood, Peter moved with his parents to England, to Britain, right here, my own homeland. And they moved here in order to avoid a massive tax bill that they owed to the Swedish authorities. Which is odd, given that they're a Christian fundamentalist family, because didn't Jesus say something in the Bible along the lines of, you know, pay unto Caesar what is his? Yes, how very strange. A religious fundamentalist family not living by the principles outlined by Jesus in the Bible. I don't know if has that ever been heard of before? I can't think of it. Anyway, yes, so Peter's family moved to England because they're tax dodging filth. Hilarious. And from there, Peter went full circle back to Norway, the land of his birth, but not the land that he considered his home country. Okay, whatever. I don't really care. But basically, all of that means that Peter is one of the many, many hypocrites that I've outlined in this series who are serial immigrants who are somehow against immigration. I mean, how does that fucking compute in your head, Peter, you dickhead? But anyways, yes, he's very much anti-immigration. I mean, he really, really fucking hates immigration, apart from when he does it, obviously. But to that point, we will return later in the episode, because with Peter, there really is nowhere else to begin but with his hatred for the Muslims. And oh my God, how this man hates the Muslims. I mean, he will use any excuse to hate on them. He will blame them for fucking anything. I mean, literally, if his testicles were to somehow spontaneously combust, he would somehow find a way of blaming Islam.
Should Islam be legal, Michael B asks. I don't think Islam should be in Europe. What do you think of Sadiq Khan in London? 3 words. London has fallen.
But even this thing has to be sacrificed on the altar of multiculturalism. Just recently, the official Sweden Twitter account tweeted this, quote, Swedish meatballs are actually based on a recipe King Charles XII brought home from Turkey in the early 18th century. Let's stick to the facts. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is 100% fake news being spread by the official Sweden Twitter account trying to diminish my culture. You know, I'm here to let them know that you will not replace us. Import Palestine, become Palestine.
Oh yes, this guy hates the Muslims. He's a real massive religious bigot. And that might stem from the fact, I think, that he's a Christian fundamentalist piece of dirt. Which would make the skeptics, although not all of them of course, but some of the skeptics have embraced Peter and his brand of nonsense. It would make that embracing of him all the more ridiculous, really, wouldn't it?
I believe that all people are sinners and that we all need Jesus and God's forgiveness.
I am a Christian. You can probably call me a Christian fundamentalist.
But as soon as you mock a particular other religion, it seems like that's a hate crime and Islamophobia. Where's the deal with Christianophobia then? Because that's the very real thing. In fact, Christians are the most persecuted people on the earth. As a Christian, I don't believe in gay marriage.
Mindy Leonhardt asks, are you a Christian? Yes. If you looked... but not modern Christianity. Modern Christianity, churchianity, this prosperity gospel thing. Absolutely not. They are a bunch of snake oil cucks. No, I don't like them at all. Go back to, look at Martin Luther. That's the kind of thing we need.
Either you serve the Lord or you serve the devil.
So yeah, he's a Christian fundy fucking twat. But don't for a second allow yourself the impression that his religious bigotry only manifests itself in hatred towards Muslims, because he really fucking hates the Jews as well. Firstly, there's all this Holocaust denial bullshit. Now you can pause and read all these tweets if you like. I'm not going to bother reading them to you, but they are merely a snippet of Peter's overall Holocaust denying nonsense. Now, it's worth pointing out that Peter claims to have changed his mind on this and now accepted that the Holocaust did in fact happen. However, what I'm about to take you through next might call into question as to whether Peter has actually changed his mind or whether he's just saying so for political convenience in order to be able to try and soft sell his far-right bullshit. Because even after Peter claims to have changed his mind, he is still behaving like a massively anti-Semitic dog turd. That anti-Semitism manifesting itself in many ways, firstly and most notably I would suggest in the anti-Semitic bullshit conspiracy theory that goes roughly something along the lines of the globalists!
Using Islam is another one of the globalists' tools. They're migrants for a complete demographic change, because that is ultimately what the globalists want.
The global elites.
Basically working as slaves. For the elite, for the bankers, for the globalists. The globalist elite and the left has realized so that the globalists...
Because the global elite, they want to replace Europe with migrants. Globalist interests. International globalist interests.
Now some of you out there might be thinking to yourself that he didn't actually mention Jewish people at all during any of those clips in that compilation there. He was just saying the globalists, right? Now to answer that concern, I will allow Peter in his own words to describe what he means when he says globalists.
Niklas Nydahl asks, what's your stance on the JQ? Well, for those of you who don't know, the JQ is a Jewish question. I think there is there's obviously a globalist elite in the world, and you have the Rothschilds, George Soros. Many of them do happen to be Jews.
This is the thing, right? We all know when these far-right dickheads talk about the globalists or the Illuminati or the NWO or whatever particular label they happen to slap on their brand of fucking bullshit, right? Whenever they mention all that sort of shit, we know that they mean the Jews! But Peter is kind enough and fucking stupid enough to just outright say it. I mean, most of them are at least smart enough to realise that you've got to sort of wrap it up in a veneer of respectability. You've got to at least try and hide it, right? But not Pete. No. He is a fucking idiot. And a scumbag. And a scumbag. Mustn't forget that he's also a fucking scumbag. Now, you heard the name mentioned in Peter's explanation of what he means by globalists. The Jews, remember? Yeah. You heard a specific name mentioned there of a particular Hungarian capitalist shitbag who Peter has a massively anti-Semitic hate boner for. Yes, Peter, much like many of his alt-right fellow travellers, is massively obsessed with this guy.
So it appears that George Soros is leaving Hungary. George Soros?
Yeah, George Soros pumped in loads of money to a Swedish far-left organization.
George Soros really is a threat to democracy. But you cannot import the whole of Africa to Europe.
It just won't work. It's not sustainable. We know what you're up to. You're trying to hide this from us, but not anymore. I'm here reporting on it, to let you, the whole world, know what's going on. With all your George Soros money.
Soros be praised! And of course, allied to his conspiracy theory bullshit about globalists and
Soros be praised.
yeah, a bit late there, Rory Cats. We're going to have to work on the timing involved there. But thank you for your input, you little ginger legend. But anyways, as I was saying, allied to Peter's conspiracy theory bullshit about globalists and George Soros is the equally anti-Semitic and equally wrong nonsense about cultural Marxism.
Public schools are complete brainwashing centers responsible for indoctrinating young kids into cultural Marxism.
Cultural Marxism is rife in Sweden.
You know, cultural Marxism. Cultural Marxism.
Cultural Marxism. Cultural Marxism.
This is what cultural Marxism brings. Degeneracy.
Yes, the cultural Marxism shtick is very similar to the whole globalists fucking nonsense. But the cultural Marxism thing can be directly linked back to the Nazis who sort of came up with the fucking concept, the lie. But yeah, don't let that stop you, Pete. Don't let that stop you spreading Nazi lies in the 21st century, you fucking piece of garbage. And whilst we're on the topic of Peter spreading Nazi propaganda bullshit, there is of course the fact that he is a firm believer in the white genocide. He's never actually honest enough to call it by that name, but that's precisely what he actually fucking believes.
I'm here to let them know that you will not replace us. We are going to make Europe great again. Make Sweden great again. These people, some people, especially that are among the globalist elite, especially hate Christianity. And what better way to destroy that than to replace indigenous Christian Europeans with another religion, Islam? There is obviously some propaganda trying to get people, often to get white people to be with black people.
But you have all the left pushing this kind of degeneracy to try and destroy the West, and you see falling birth rates among Europeans. Meanwhile, they want to bring in migrants to replace the population. It's a controlled, organized population replacement through the back door by the European governments, using NGOs as a front to do the dirty work for them.
Yeah, do you see what I meant earlier in the intro when I said that he was arguably one of the most wrong human beings ever? Yeah, he really is so wrong about fucking near as damn it everything. But anyways, as further proof of Peter's Nazi-liciousness, I present to you a compilation of Peter's stocking trade. That being him referring to basically fucking anything he doesn't like as communist. You know, regardless of how absolutely thoroughly fucking absurd the claim may be.
There's always been like that in communist countries, and Sweden is a communist country.
Basically, political correctness is basically communism.
But these people have an agenda. They have an agenda. They have a communist agenda that they are pushing through the fake news media. Now, if you think it's bad now, it's only going to get worse, likely, because the opposition party in the UK is run by a guy called Jeremy Corbyn, and he's basically a communist. Sweden is a very communist country. It seems like the UK is rapidly turning into a communist police state. Meanwhile, Sweden is surrendering completely to, well, communism.
Communist bus method. Communist bus method. I can't help but feel that although that is an absolutely superb name for an album, Seriously, someone should make that. That phrase crystallises perfectly how much of a fucking mental case this guy is. Taking the fucking bus is communist, according to this guy. A mentalist of, dare I say it, Orwellian proportions. But anyways, yeah, another subtle way in which you can tell that he's just trying to soft sell you his far-right bullshit, and that's what you've got to bear in mind during all of this, okay, is that he's just trying to soft sell you a very far-right agenda. Just trying to sneak it through, right? And another way you can tell that that's what he's trying to do is that he can't just criticise Nazism without also criticising communism, okay? He can't just do that on its own. It has to be, oh, well, Nazism's bad, but communism's bad too. That's the way it has to be done, okay? You can't, like, separate them. You can't just criticise Nazism or a Nazi or, you know, what happened during the Second World War or anything like that, right? He has to throw in, and communism's bad too. And that is an almost surefire way of showing that you're dealing with a closet Nazi.
It's way worse. I mean, Hitler was bad, but pales in comparison to Mao and the communists. That is why free speech is so important. And this is an important part of why I'm doing my work, to help avoid a repeat of history. So we don't get another Hitler, so we don't get another Stalin. It's really astounding to think that, you know, whenever someone mentions the Nazis, you know, everyone knows instantly, yeah, they're bad people, but whenever someone says communist, they're like, they don't really know all the evils of communism. It's really important to educate people on how evil communism actually is.
Now, ultimately, there's nothing wrong with trying to criticise stuff that you disagree with. If he disagrees with communism, that's fine. But we did also see earlier that he thinks that Theresa May is a communist, and also a crypto-communist. That would be the Conservative Prime Minister of Britain. So clearly, when he says, oh, but communism did X, Y, and Z, he doesn't know what communism even fucking is. So, yeah, I'm not sure I can take any of that seriously. But anyways, yeah, another way you can tell that you're dealing with a closet Nazi is when they constantly go on about stuff being degenerate. And with Peter, you have a truly bewildering array of basically innocuous things that he considers to be degenerate somehow.
There's one ask, can you recommend any Swedish films? Non-cucked. No, because I don't watch films. Films are degenerate.
It's not natural. It's not right. It is degenerate.
Well, modern music is degenerate. Influenced by leftism and cultural Marxism. No, I don't like tobacco. Degenerate.
Degeneracy!
Fascia wave is alt-right music, not heavy metal. Heavy metal is degenerate.
Yeah, he's a fucking mental case of, like I say, Orwellian proportions. There's no other way of really putting it at this point, I think. Anyways, right. Now, the last two pieces I mentioned, the not criticising Nazism without also criticising communism, and the thinking of things as degenerate and describing them as degenerate stuff, right? Those two pieces might be seen as sort of circumstantial evidence, right? They're not entirely conclusive on their own to, you know, show that this guy is a Nazi. And also, he says that he isn't a white nationalist. But the thing is, Peter, that claim does not stand up to any kind of scrutiny, considering the things you've said and the things you believe.
Richard Taylor asked, thoughts on civic nationalism? It's a start. Niklas Nydahl asks, what's your stance on the JQ? Well, for those of you who don't know, the JQ is a Jewish question. I think there is there's obviously a globalist elite in the world, and you have the Rothschilds, George Soros. Many of them do happen to be Jews. I think Europe should be for Europeans, and Africa for Africans, and so on. Are they smart enough? Research showed that sub-Saharan IQ is below 70. Is it that are they just too dumb? Do they don't want to work? And Red says, I'm not a Nazi, but I do think the JQ is real. I agree. You can you can definitely. I mean, you don't have to be a Nazi to be into the JQ at all. Someone asked what I think of Richard Spencer. I think he's doing quite good work.
Just because you were born in Norway doesn't make you Norwegian, you know. If a Asian person is born in Sweden, that doesn't make him Swedish.
I see you, Peter, you Nazi little fuck. Now, Peter claims to be a journalist. He isn't. He's a propagandist hack piece of fucking garbage, as I think we've seen rather conclusively so far. But even so, I'm going to push the fucking point. I'm going to flog the dead horse, so to speak. I'm not literally going to be flogging any dead horses. That'd be mental. Anyways, right, Peter certainly claims, though, that very often, in fact, that he is a journalist.
I'm a journalist. So as an independent journalist, I think it's highly appreciated and helps me keep producing quality journalism like this. I report the truth.
Now, I'm just a journalist reporting the truth about what's happening in Sweden.
Now, I am just an independent journalist, a humble, even if I do say so myself, independent journalist.
Yeah, Pete, if you have to constantly keep reminding everybody that you're a journalist, perhaps that shows that even you don't really believe the things you're saying there, and that you know that you're a hack. Yeah, come on now. And like I say, he isn't a fucking journalist, right? He's just a fucking hack piece of shit who, you know, exists in a kind of maelstrom of hatred that exists in his head, and he just spews that forth into the world because, you know, he's a hateful piece of Nazi garbage. I don't know why I sung that bit. It's staying in. It's fucking staying in. But anyways, you can tell that Peter doesn't actually care about the truth or anything, given that he has a weird fetish for Sweden of yesteryear, but not the actual Sweden that used to exist, the Sweden that he's conjured up for himself in his fucking alt-right fever dream imagination. Peter, when the fuck has Sweden ever been about giant mushrooms and lionesses and a guy who converted his car so it's now got a fucking fireplace in it? What are you talking about, you mad bastard? Yeah, Peter, I've talked to a lot of Swedish people during the course of researching this episode. Yeah, not one of them vaguely recognises the Peter Sweden imagination land that you fucking created for yourself in your head. And also, Peter, none of them recognise the Sweden of today that you describe, which according to you is some sort of post-apocalyptic Muslim hellscape.
Well, Peter Sweden here. Is a civil war imminent in Sweden?
Sweden is swamped with cultural Marxists. Free speech in Sweden doesn't exist.
Sweden is just in a catastrophic situation at this point.
No, Sweden. You're embarrassing me, Sweden.
I mean, I don't know if Sweden is beyond saving at this point.
There's not many Swedish girls that are marriage material, that you can say. I would classify the Swedish government as authoritarian socialist. It's kind of like Sweden is turning into... I mean, Sweden is becoming worse than Somalia.
Worse than Somalia. Snowflake alert! Jesus fucking Christ. Now, clearly he's fucking wrong about Sweden, right? He's just lying because, you know, he's a propagandist hack, right? Lest we forget. And now you can tell that Peter's lying about the state of Sweden by literally just asking the Swedish people, because if you look at the numbers for the World Happiness Index, I've left them linked below, right? You can tell that the people of Sweden actually quite like living there, because they ranked 9th in the world in terms of happiness, right? So clearly they're rather happy living in Sweden. It's not the post-apocalyptic fucking hell world that Peter is describing, because they're literally the 9th happiest people on the fucking planet. Now let's compare that to a couple of countries that Peter Sweden thinks are fucking brilliant, based on the fasci leaders that they have in power. Firstly, the United States of Americanaland, which Peter loves because Donald Trump. That's literally it would appear. But even so, right, America ranked 18th happiest country in the world. So clearly America must be a shitter place than Sweden, because the people of America don't like living in America as much as the Swedish people like living in Sweden. And Hungary, right? The Eastern European nation, which Peter Sweden fucking loves because they've got a genuine out-and-out fash piece of garbage called Viktor Orban, who is the leader there, right? Peter fucking loves that country, and they ranked 69 in the world. 69. LOL. I'm not childish at all, I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, so clearly, the people of Sweden much, much prefer living in Sweden than the people of Hungary like living in Hungary. And clearly the people of Sweden disagree with you about the state of Sweden. And I know who I'm going to trust, because A, not everyone in Sweden is a piece of garbage hack like you, and B, they live in Sweden and you don't. Now, the main way that Peter tries to force through his whole, "Oh, Sweden's dead, it's been taken over by the Muslims" argument is through bullshitting about what has become very much the go-to argument of the far right, which is the supposed immigrant/Muslim rape crisis in Europe. So yes, regrettably, now it's time for... Yes, it's the inevitable bit about rape. I really don't want to have to talk about all of this fucking nonsense, because you know it's going to be shit, and the cat's just interrupted me. What a dickhead. Come here. Say hello to everyone, already, cats. Hello. Yeah, he's beautiful, isn't he? Anyways, as I was saying, I don't really want to be talking about this because I know Peter Sweden, and I know that he's going to lie about numbers to do with a very, very serious topic, but, you know, here we go. Now, before we even get into this topic, right, a couple of quick caveats or disclaimers or whatever you want to call them, right? Firstly, these evil fuckers, Peter Sweden included, who rant on constantly about this topic, don't actually care about the victims of rape. They just want to use this issue as a way of pushing their anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, hateful agenda. Please bear that in mind whenever you hear one of these fuckers going on and on about this topic, right? And secondly, in the upcoming segment, I will be arguing that Peter is very much blowing the problem vastly out of proportion in order to push that aforementioned agenda. My cat is absolutely adorable, but he is also rather annoying to try and film around because he thinks I'm talking to him, and so he'll often squeak or come and knock the camera stand or something because he's a dickhead. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. I think Peter is overblowing massively the size of the problem in Sweden, and I know for a fact that he's fucking lying about the numbers, and I'll take you through those in a second. But don't get this fucking twisted, okay? I am in no way saying that there isn't a problem in Sweden, okay? I'm in no way trying to downplay that there is a problem in Sweden. I know that sexual assault and rape are huge issues across the fucking world, and that obviously includes Sweden. And the Swedish police and the Swedish government need to get a fucking hold of the problem. All I am doing in the upcoming segment is merely trying to undo some of the fucking lies, misinformation and bullshit spread by Peter and his ilk. So with that dealt with, let's have a look at what Peter has to say on this topic.
There's recently been some pretty bad statistics coming out from Sweden, showing that 1 in 8 of all Swedish women will be raped during her lifetime.
Now, I've only been able to find the 1 in 8 figure on fucking right-winger hate sites like Voice of Europe and Stormfront, so I'm calling fucking bullshit on this one, and I'm correct to do so, as will be exposed later when Peter reveals how they came to that figure. But even without that upcoming bit, I would still be correct in calling bullshit on this because Peter cites literally no fucking source for this under his video. Imagine making a video called "Discussing the Rape Crisis in Sweden, the Statistics," and then linking to no fucking statistics whatsoever. Yes, Peter, you really are the consummate journalist.
These are only the ones that are reported. That, you know, there is a lot of rapes that will not be reported, for reasons, whether I think it's not politically correct or whatever.
Oh my god, Peter genuinely believes that political correctness is one of the main reasons that rape victims don't come forward. I mean, he didn't actually mention any of the real reasons why people don't come forward, like the fact that, they fear that scum like Peter won't believe them, unless they say that their attacker was a Muslim, in which case they'll instantly believe them. Yeah, it's funny how you do the listen and believe thing, but only if the accused is a Muslim, Peter. So yeah, he didn't actually mention any of the real reasons why rape victims don't come forward about their stories. No. No, his only suggestion was political correctness. I mean, what a pathetically stunted little fucking creep this guy is.
The reported rapes in Sweden for 2017, the statistics are in. So the statistics we have for 2017 is that The number of rapes increased with 10% from 2016 to 2017.
Well done, Peter. Those numbers are actually correct. But you see, there's a difference, right? I've been able to find those numbers in the official statistics, so I'm able to believe them because they come from a reputable source. Whereas that 1 in 8 figure, that shit you mentioned earlier, yeah, that only appears on far-right fucking propaganda sites. Do you see the difference there between those two sets of numbers? And yes, there has been a 10% rise in the rape count in Sweden, which is fucking dreadful. And like I say, the authorities need to get their fucking shit together and deal with this problem. But in terms of why that increase has happened, it's sort of impossible to say given the narrow chronological data set that we have. But undoubtedly contributing factors to this have been the broadening of the definition of rape in Sweden and the fact that the Swedish police have put significant focus on rape processing rates, which had been very lax up until recently but have improved significantly. So both of those things are contributing factors, right? But what Peter wants you to believe is that it's just the Muslims, the immigrants, the brown people. But anyways, Peter, please continue with your cavalcade of lies about the topic of rape in Sweden.
There are 10 million people living in Sweden. About 5 million of the people living in Sweden are women. So 5 million women living in Sweden. And if you assume, according to the Swedish statistics, the average lifespan of a Swedish woman is 84 years. So that means if there are 7,230 rapes every year, that means that during a woman's lifetime of 84 years, there will be 607,320 rapes during that lifetime. If there's only 5 million women living in Sweden and 600,000 of them are getting raped, that's a 12% chance of a woman getting raped during a lifetime, or 1 in 8.
And now we can see how the far right has cooked up their 1 in 8 figure. They're playing with fantasy numbers. Because Peter, how can you possibly tell that there are going to be that number of rapes every year from now in perpetuity? Because you can't, can you? You can't see into the future. Also, why do you assume no change in population numbers over that 84-year period? Seriously, there could be massive increases or massive decreases. It's very unlikely to remain stable during the whole of that 84-year period. Also, Peter, and I would highlight this one for the MRAs out there, Peter, why are you not taking into account the fact that not all of those rapes are happening to women? Because that overall number of rapes contains men and women, doesn't it, Peter? You see, Peter, I'm even a better men's rights activist than you. Jesus. So anyways, the 1 in 8 figure is totally fucking bogus, right? Now, the real number, whatever it actually is far too fucking high, right? Any number of rapes is too high. So I'm not trying to say that there isn't a problem at all. What I am doing, though, is unpicking fucking harmful, lying bullshit like the 1 in 8 figure, okay? What I'm trying to do is trying to unpick some of that hateful bullshit so that we can actually get a clear picture of what the problem is. And ultimately, to remind everybody that these fuckers don't care about rape victims. You need only look at their reaction to the Me Too campaign to know that they don't actually care about rape victims, right? All they want to do is find people who were raped by, brown folk. And that's one of the most disgusting elements of listening to these pricks go on about this topic, is that they don't actually care about women's bodily integrity or rape victims or anything like that. They're just trying to use the harrowing experiences of these people to push a racist agenda. But anyways, Peter, I interrupted you lying there, so by all means, continue.
If you look further back with the statistics in Sweden, if you look back to 1974, there was only 421 rapes happening in Sweden in 1974. Now, if you fast forward 44 years. If you fast forward 44 years now to 2017, it was 7,230 rapes in 2017. That's what, almost a 2,000% increase in rapes from 1970s to now. That's really a catastrophic increase, if you ask me.
Now Peter is fudging the numbers here in order to try and murky the waters, to try and make it seem like it's much worse than it is, so that he can blame, you know, brown folk. Anyways, right, so he's fudging the numbers here. Because for a start, Peter, there were only 8 million people living in Sweden back in 1974, so it's about a quarter larger now than it was back then, okay? So we're talking about a significantly larger number of people, so you would expect a relatively significantly larger number of sexual assaults, unfortunately. Yeah, there are around 10 million living there now, there were only 8 million then, so that accounts for some of that difference. Also, as I mentioned earlier, there is now a much broader definition of rape, even from a few years ago, let alone the fact that this is 1974 when the definition of rape would have been even more fucking narrow, and attitudes towards rape even more disgusting. So the number of people coming forward to report rapes, especially within marriages and stuff, would have been far, far lower, which doesn't mean that those rapes didn't happen, it just means that they're not recorded in the statistics. So you just throwing out there that there's a 2,000% increase, right, without mentioning any of that fucking context, is real top-notch hack work. It really fucking is. And my basic overall point here is, whilst there has been a significant increase in the statistics in regard to rape in Sweden, and there clearly is a problem, as there is across the fucking world, right? The point is here, though, that Peter just wants to blame Muslims. And you can't blame solely Muslims for this problem. It's fucking ridiculous. But be under no illusions, that is precisely what Peter is trying to do here, and that exposes him as the Nazi that he fucking is.
It's insane. Because of political correctness. Because of political correctness.
They only do it to white Swedish people.
Right.
They don't do it to migrants.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be politically correct.
Political correctness.
The problems in Sweden with political correctness.
Oh yeah, he's also massively obsessed with political correctness as well. Not for any legitimate reason, of course, just because, you know, he wants to be able to be as racist as he fucking likes, but without anyone being able to call him on it. But the thing is, Peter, that's not how free speech works. Not that I should be surprised that you don't understand the concept of free speech, because you are one of the many, many twats on the internet who rant on and on about that topic, even though you clearly don't fucking understand it. But, you know, you not understanding a thing has never stopped you before from talking about it, has it, Pete?
There's no free speech in Sweden.
But it's free speech, and everyone has the right to free speech.
That's what's happening. Especially what the far left is doing with political correctness. You know, when I lose the debate, when I don't when I don't have any arguments, they take to trying to hinder their opponent's free speech.
Unlike the US, in Europe, there are no First Amendment, which means you don't have a right to freedom of speech. I mean, where's free speech? Free speech!
Free speech.
Free speech.
Free speech.
Free speech. That is why free speech is so important.
But everyone should have the right to free speech.
But there's the thing, Peter. You don't actually believe that everyone should have freedom of speech, you fucking hypocritical wanker.
The party that he's representing has the literal red star as its logo. And the thing is, you know, these people are speaking open in the street, you know. Communism has killed 100 million people, and they're allowed to speak open in the street like this. Why?
Yes, he wants unlimited free speech, but only for him and his fascist buddies. No free speech if you're a communist, or, you know, if you're George Soros, and also if you're an American citizen who wants to protest police brutality. Yeah, Pete, just be honest, right? You don't support freedom of speech. You are an authoritarian piece of fucking shit. Anyways, let's wrap this shit up, because I'm so unbelievably done with Peter Sweden at this fucking point. Now, there are loads of things that I didn't get around to mentioning. There was the fact that he's a massive conspiracy theorist. I mean, we touched on some of it with, you know, the cultural Marxism and the fucking George Soros stuff and all that, right? But we didn't mention the real hardcore fucking conspiracy theorist nonsense that he comes out with. He's really bought into the Alex Jones InfoWars fucking bullshit line about, oh, Pepsi are putting dead fetuses into their products, and fucking vaccines cause autism and all this fucking nonsense. Yes, he really is that much of a cretin. We barely got to touch upon his Twitter account, although we did see a few examples during the course of some of the compilations and stuff, but we didn't get to talk about it, you know, in of itself as its own little fucking entity, because trust me, it is a fucking gold mine of derp. It's fucking stupid and hate-fueled, and just full of fucking utter, literal fake news. Not the fake news in the sense that, oh, I don't like this thing. Literally, it's fake fucking news. He just makes any old shit up. I think my favourite claim that he's ever made on his Twitter account was that there has been 0 Christian terrorist attacks throughout history. I mean, one of the most obviously, provably fucking false claims there's ever been. Jesus Christ. And yet he has the fucking temerity to call fake news on other people. Quite astonishing. There's also the fact that he jumps on basically every terrorist attack or everything that looks like it might be a terrorist attack and, you know, blames the Muslims for it straight away, to the point of him claiming knowledge that he can't possibly fucking possess, like, you know, the identity, religion, ethnicity or motivation of the people / person involved in whatever's happened, okay? Even though it's only minutes after, or even in some cases while it's still ongoing. So he can't possibly know it, but yet he'll come out and say, it's the Muslims! And that obviously leads to him getting egg on his face pretty regularly, which is quite fun. And then we get the fun of watching him try and worm out of it without apologising and retracting. It's quite a ride. Also, there was the thing that was mentioned once in one of the compilations, but other than that we didn't touch upon it at all, was his absolutely rank homophobia. Yeah, he really is a nasty, bigoted fucker when it comes to the LGBTQI plus community. Yeah, he's really not a fan of gay people, or trans people, or non-binary people, or basically anyone who isn't a straight white Christian dude. And that's basically the whole point with Peter. He's just a fash piece of shit. He may try and dress it up in nicer words, but ultimately he's just your common or garden Nazi spunk trumpet. And I think that sums it up quite nicely. So with all of that said, done, and out of the way, there is just one thing left for me to say. Peter Sweden, go fuck yourself.